No, don't make that face. Don't act surprised if as you didn't think that I was not going to react to one half of my favorite wrestler, AJ Styles, officially retiring after 26 years in the world of professional wrestling. Man, you got to bear with me. This is going to be a tough one for me, but it only seems right. I have to do this. This had to be a very special episode of Realness Reacts, not to mention we are in an anniversary year. So without further ado, let's get to it. AJ Styles is officially retired. It doesn't sit well with me as I say it over and over again, but I must do this. On this episode of Realness Reacts, I choose. No, it is an absolute honor for me to react to the life and the career of AJ Styles. For those that may not be familiar with this, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, however you want to call them, have always been one half of my favorite professional wrestler currently, not of all time, but my favorite current professional wrestlers. And earlier in the year, probably not early in the year, but a little bit before that, Bryan Danielson decided that he kind of had to retire due to some lingering issues. And we knew this day was coming for AJ Styles. But after 26 phenomenal years, my guy has finally called it quits. I can't deal with this. I'm having a hard time, especially the way it went down. But we don't have time to get into that. I have to make it very clear that 2026 is a very special year to me, as well as the wrestling realm, because we are celebrating 15 years. 15 years of the wrestling realm. That is a long time to be doing this. And we are there's so much happening this year. There's so much going on. And the fact that AJ Styles, my favorite professional wrestler, decided to, hey, hang up the boots. Or is he? We'll get into that later as well. Trust me. But man, how fitting. How fitting that in our anniversary year, something like this happens. But nonetheless, I have a job to do. It's because Realness Reacts must move on just as AJ Styles had. But let's just begin at the very top. AJ Styles found himself in a match with Gunther, and his career was on the line. Now listen, let me tell you what we're not going to do on this episode. We're not going to go into the specifics. We're not going to the dates. We're not going to do a complete timeline of all of his career and accomplishments. Trust me, we'd be here for too long. This man wrestled for 26 years.
You ain't lying.
We don't have time for that. This is about me. This is about how it affects me.
It's all about me.
How I am directly affected by AJ Styles retiring and how he became my favorite wrestler. All the great stuff, and of course, the ultimate thank you to AJ Styles. But how do we get here in the first place? Now, there was rumors going around. There was speculation due to a couple trademarks being filed by AJ Styles, or Alan Jones as his real name is, of the phenomenal AJ Styles, or his P1 logo. And a lot of people saying, well, listen, just because his career is over in WWE, it doesn't mean that he cannot continue his storied career elsewhere. Now, in recent day, we might not have said, oh, that's not possible, no big deal. But listen, in today's landscape of professional wrestling, there's a lot going on. We've seen so many things happen, and that pretty much could have been a possibility. But there was something that happened. AJ Styles, after his retirement, he made an appearance on Stephanie McMahon's podcast where he had a complete sit down and he explained the reason why he decided to call it quits, to decide to hang up the boots after 26 years. Stephanie McMahon went into detail with AJ Styles about why he decided to retire. And based off that interview, I can honestly say, I think at this point, it doesn't mean that AJ Styles is completely done with the wrestling. And he explains that. And if you want the details, go back and watch that podcast. It's really good. But for now, AJ Styles has decided to go home. I know a lot of people were thinking and speculating and all that kind of stuff, which is why I waited to do this in the first place. I said, wait a minute, Realness, don't move too fast because we need to figure out what the heck is going on, because don't play with my emotions like this. I'm having a hard time even having this conversation in the first goddamn place. But I think it's clear. When you hear the comments from what his wife had to say about him, the comments that his children had to say about him, most specifically his daughter, I think it's obvious that AJ Styles' heart is ready to be at home with his family. And I couldn't respect that anymore. I mean, at the end of the day, what more does he have left to give us? Now, of course, AJ Styles has never lost a step, and Triple H has gone out of his way to say, look, he has not slowed down, he hasn't lost a step. But the reality is, AJ Styles wanted to walk away on his own terms in a way and in a fashion where people remembered him for being simply phenomenal. You like what I did there? Now, that was smooth, I know. 26 years. 26 years is a long time to be in this business. And if you want to be, if you really want to admit it, AJ Styles has almost had at least 4 or 5 Hall of Fame careers just off his time in TNA, New Japan Pro Wrestling / Ring of Honor, and also in the WWE. I mean, he has given us so much over the years, but let's just jump into it. Realness. When and why is AJ Styles your favorite wrestler? Well, let me just start from the beginning. I first discovered AJ Styles around 2004 at a teammate's house. It was summer, and we were at a team camp, and I was spending the night over my teammate's house, and we were hanging out. And earlier that week or earlier in that day, we were planning vacation. That's right, your boy was headed to Universal Studios, and she handed me this paper, said, hey, look, they got some wrestling here. Yes, my mother has put up with my wrestling shenanigans since the beginning, and as much as she hates to admit it, she has supported 1000% and contributed to some of the madness. Anyways, she showed me this paper with this new wrestling company. She said, there's some sort of wrestling going on at Universal Studios called TNA Impact or something. She said, maybe we can check it out when we go down there. I'm like, bet. Yeah, you don't got to threaten me with a good time. So give it a few weeks later, summertime, we're looking, and I'm at my buddy's house. Like I said, we had a team camp, and we spent the night at Jock's house, Big Jock. His name was French, but he wasn't. That's a different story for a different day. Anyways, he was scrolling. It was late night. We eating pizza, staying up all night. It's the summertime, big whoop. And TNA Impact came across the screen. It was on Fox Sports, and I said, "Ho, Jock, go back real quick." He's like, "What, Wayne?" I'm like, "Go back real quick." And we clicked on this TNA Impact, and I saw TNA for the very first time on Fox Sportsnet, and I was like, "Well, wait a minute, look at this. We got more pro wrestling." Now this is 2004. Now, mind you, I wasn't so much into WWE in 2004. I was casually finding my way back. We're talking post Attitude Era, but a lot of my favorites that have been released from WWE that may have been in ECW, WCW, or even WWE, it seemed like they were all on this new professional wrestling that I've discovered, known as TNA wrestling, total nonstop action wrestling. So, of course, what TNA used to do in the early years is TNA used to always show these commercials. They always had pay-per-views coming up, and there was a match coming up between AJ Styles and Jeff Jarrett. I believe it might have been in a 6 sides of steel match. I could be wrong. I don't remember. It was that long ago. It doesn't matter. AJ Styles was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and of course they did the packages with the guy TNA Wrestling Cross the Line, and AJ Styles, and of course they show the highlight reel. They show all the stuff that AJ Styles doing, all the flips, the spinal taps, all these things that made him phenomenal. And immediately I recognized Jeff Jarrett. I said, wait a minute, I got to figure out what's going on. And that was the first time that I saw AJ Styles. Fast forward a few years later, you start getting the TNA. Like I said, yeah, I'm tracking. It's 2004, so I'm checking on Fox Sports Net. This is before the Spike deal, and I'm trying to figure out, and eventually I find it. It came on random Saturday evenings or weekends, or whatever the heck it was. It doesn't matter. But I began to dive into TNA wrestling for the first time, and it was just different. And when I saw it, I said, this reminds me of WCW Saturday Night. And of course, it was in the same place as when WCW shot their weekend shows. But it was known as the Impact Zone, but it felt nostalgic. It had a different feel to it. It looked very different from WWE. And I wanted it to succeed at the moment. I would turn on TNA eventually, but that's not the point. Needless to say, I became instantly an AJ Styles fan. He wasn't quite my favorite then, but this guy truly was his nickname. He was absolutely phenomenal. So fast forward a couple of years. When did AJ Styles officially become the Realness, his favorite wrestler, along with Daniel Bryan? There was a shift in pro wrestling. We're talking 2013. After 11 years in TNA wrestling, AJ Styles had so many dramatic shifts. He had a lot of character changes. Like I said, we're not getting into all of that, but the most important character change is when he finally became kind of his solo run. He was the phenomenal one, and he was kind of this lone ranger type character. He grew his hair out. He started wearing another jacket. his gear changed. And immediately I was like, oh, okay, now I'm dialed back in. What's going on with AJ Styles? And this is around the time where TNA started to have some financial troubles. And if you don't believe me, there's an article on my website, the RealDwayneAllen.com, in 2014 that's called from my original post I used to do called the Realness Report, where I said AJ Styles still phenomenal and better than ever. That was probably just a few months after he officially left TNA. So why did AJ Styles leave TNA? Because after 11 years, TNA decided they wanted him to take a pay cut, and AJ Styles clearly was offended by the fact that they asked him, out of all people, to take a pay cut. AJ Styles wasn't having it. There was a loser leaves TNA match. Obviously, AJ Styles lost, but there was a spell where TNA, AJ Styles was claimed to be the TNA World Champion, but he left, and Dixie Carter had named Nick Aldis, the current general manager on WWE SmackDown, as the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And AJ Styles was, he was kind of course, the old school, who is the real world champion. So AJ Styles went to Wrestle 1. I remember specifically because this when I started to get into Japanese wrestling just a tad bit. He wrestled Seiya Sanada in Wrestle 1. It was before Pro Wrestling Noah became a thing, but Wrestle 1 was trying to get off the ground. And I was so enthralled with AJ Styles' match because at this point, this version of AJ Styles, I was like, man, I'm telling you, this is the guy. And this is around the time in WWE where I was starting to get just a tad bit fed up and I was looking for an alternative, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So AJ Styles is having this moment. I thought maybe at least if AJ Styles leaves TNA, based off the dirt sheet saying they want to take a pay cut, it's not going for it, I figured they would at least have a good match. Nick Aldis, I've always respected his work. I've always liked him as a professional wrestler, performer, sports entertainer, however you want to spin it. But we got shenanigans. Now. Clearly, we partake in our fair share of shenanigans. And I know it seems quite hypocritical for me to say, hey, I didn't want to see shenanigans. I wanted to see a really good match. At least when AJ Styles goes out, he'll go out, he'll leave TNA after 11 years with a bang. It didn't quite happen that way. Anyways, AJ Styles leaves TNA Wrestling. And AJ Styles was Mr. TNA. AJ Styles was the main reason a lot of us started watching TNA Wrestling in the first place. So for the first time for him to be a free agent, everybody was like, wait a minute, where's AJ Styles actually going to go? Does he fit into WWE? Is he going to be NXT? This was when NXT was just starting to get his footing in. The era of the indie superstar was still a battle that was being fought between the leftover trailblazing moments of CM Punk, as we kind of got into the Daniel Bryan era in the years, but this is around the time where the Shield was starting to take off and we saw what direction the WWE was trying to go in. We all see how that worked out. Now, didn't we? Shame on you. Anyways, AJ Styles as a free agent was something that we were all looking forward to. And at that point, I said, okay, I'm locked in completely. I'm with AJ wherever he goes. And I'm scouring the internet for anything. The only thing I could find is an independent booking he took when he wrestled against Cedric Alexander. Same gear, same look. I'm like, this version of AJ Styles is the best version of AJ Styles that I have ever witnessed. And I was completely on board for his next move. So when AJ Styles decided to head to Japan, to New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's a company that I had just started to get familiar with because we had a couple of people in the early years of the Wrestling Room Facebook group that were kind of taking their jabs at WWE, and they kept saying New Japan is better. And, we all knew of New Japan. We all heard about it. We knew, things about it, between TNA's partnership, which was most recent, and, the stuff we grew up on in WCW. But there wasn't a whole lot in the New Japan that we were familiar with, especially during that time period. We're talking 2013 going into 2014. Well, guess what? In January 2014 at Wrestle Kingdom 8, that was the Wrestle Kingdom that changed everything for me, by the way. That's when I became a complete New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. I began to dive into that, and I went back and watched everything else, and then I watched everything forward. There's this group called the Bullet Club. As Prince Devitt was on his way out, it turns out AJ Styles joins the Bullet Club and becomes its new leader. I mean, immediately it seemed like the Bullet Club exploded because it was all eyes on AJ Styles, and he was once known as a TNA guy. And as Brian H always brings it up, I always tell people that AJ Styles had to get the TNA stink off of him. TNA's reputation wasn't the greatest in 2013. It was always a company in shift. It was always a company in transition. There's always a company with a new regime. It seemed like it could never get itself together. And the fact that they asked one of their most important, if not the most important, he was the most important homegrown superstar and to take a pay cut. Shame on you, TNA. Shame on you. That's unacceptable. What TNA's loss was our game. New Japan Pro Wrestling had a new audience. Everybody was completely dialed in, including me. Now, luckily for us, we had Daily Motion. Daily Motion allowed us to sit there and watch all these global matches because I don't know if it was legal or not, but there was no New Japan World at the time. And that was the first time we got a chance to see all of AJ Styles' matches in the G1 Climax, his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship run, being the leader of the Bullet Club. And all of a sudden, it was like, bro, this Bullet Club has these NWO vibes. And guess who had a front row seat? Your boy, the Realness. I was completely dialed in. At that point, I said, this global superstar is absolutely my favorite wrestler. Currently, at that time, it was Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan was the guy that we were getting behind. He was the one we wanted. Like I said, CM Punk paved the way for the indie superstar. We always have this conversation, right? But it was somebody that had to run just as CM Punk walked. CM Punk walked so Daniel Bryan can run, and then Daniel Bryan paved the way for so many other superstars. It pretty much did everything that NXT gave us, but it's not the point. AJ Styles shut everything down. He brought instant credibility to the States when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it made huge fans out of a lot of us. And at that point, around 2013, 2014, AJ Styles became my favorite wrestler. He gave me a reason to look at something outside of WWE. It mattered to me, especially during that time when I was getting annoyed. I'm trying to tell you, I officially walked away in 2015. You can ask the brothers. They can tell you that story at a different date. It's not important, but trust me, New Japan started to grow on me. Not to mention Ring of Honor was taken off. It was officially bought by Sinclair Broadcasting, and it was in our backyard. That's right. Ring of Honor was in Baltimore, Maryland. We had a front row seat to a lot of good professional wrestling up close and personal for a decent price. A lot of your favorite professional wrestlers in AEW, WWE, NXT, however you want to spin it, they got their start in Ring of Honor. And guess what? Your boys had a front seat to it all. And when they announced that AJ Styles would, take part in the partnership between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor, he actually he made a few stops at Ring of Honor. And guess what? There's it might be some footage right around here. They told me to stop shooting, but I did it anyway. It's okay. But here's my proof. Yep, right there. So yes, AJ Styles' run in Ring of Honor was something to see. And as crazy as it might sound, I actually met AJ Styles. Let me tell you that story. Long story short, I know I'm long-winded. Keep going. I was working the event with Blizz Photography. Blake was he was working with Ring of Honor. He's working with Jeff Jones, and they brought him in to do principal photography for a lot of superstars. Matter of fact, why don't you insert clip right here? There's a proof of that too, because just in case you think I'm bluffing. Yep, right there. So yes, so once again, you saw some of your favorites anyway. So we were working the event, and I was recording stuff, and he promised me, like, hey man, AJ Styles is taking photos today. You can take photos with him. One of the last things I did before he left TNA was I went to TNA shop and got the AJ Styles gloves. I got the black ones and the blue ones. That's just putting it out there for the fans to know. That's how serious I was as a fan. But I had a chance to meet AJ Styles, and I was like, yo, I can take pictures with him. He's like, yeah, trust me, when he comes in, we'll just do it. Now, unfortunately, AJ Styles did not come back for photos that night. He had a long, grueling match, and he was like, nah, I'm done. He wasn't for it. I don't take that personal, because let me tell you what happened. AJ Styles was coming in with Jay Lethal, and I just happened to be leaving the area in which we were set up to work that evening. And what happens? AJ Styles comes in with Jay Lethal, and he's walking. He's got these big bags, and Jay's walking down the arena steps, and he goes, Jay, and he's looking like, I need some help with my bags. And Jay Lethal's looking around like, and I saw him, and I said, oh my gosh, that's AJ Styles. Now this is the realness we talking. Of course, I played it cool. I didn't do anything crazy. I didn't say nothing. I didn't fan out. I said, let me play it cool, because that's how it is when you work in the industry. You can't act like you're a huge fan, even though inside I'm dying, because that's AJ Styles. This is my favorite wrestler in front of me. So I said, hey, do you need some help with your bags? He goes, yeah, if you don't mind. I picked up. Yep, I was fangirling on the inside, not on the outside. Grabbed his bags, and I walked down, and I played it cool all the way until the end. I don't think I've ever told this story before, so Brian H is going to get a kick out of this. All the way until the end, and I said, I couldn't help myself. I said, hey man, you mind if I tell other people that I carried AJ Styles' bag? He said, not everybody, but sure, why not? I said, okay, cool. If you need anything, just say the word. He said, all right, thank you. I dropped his bags off, and I proceeded to walk back to the photography area where we were working. And I told Blake, like, Blizz, I just met AJ Styles. And he's like, what? I said, yep. carried his bag down the steps. And I don't care what you say. You can call me whatever mark you want. It does not matter. Fate was fate. And on that day, thank the Lord Jesus, because he knew my child wants to meet AJ Styles and he made it happen for me. So thank you, Lord. Thank you. So that's the one time I actually met AJ Styles. AJ Styles had a phenomenal run. You see what I did there? Pun intended. Phenomenal run in New Japan Pro Wrestling and his short time in Ring of Honor, doing a partnership, of course. And came the fateful day in 2016. AJ Styles, of course, my boys, the Good Brothers, as well as Shinsuke Nakamura, they finished up their obligations to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they all signed with the WWE. So, needless to say, we were all nervous, and we know this. We were like, "Oh, geez, what's Vince going to do with AJ Styles? Is he going to rename him? Is he going to allow him to be himself? Is AJ Styles going to be the same? How the WWE audience going to respond to him?" But we all knew that AJ Styles was simply phenomenal. How many times have I said phenomenal so far on the show? Okay, we'll keep going. And we were all curious to see what happens, but that fateful day, and at the Royal Rumble in 2016, where his music hit and everyone was kind of confused, including Roman. But when that word phenomenal went across that screen and we saw AJ Styles come out in Florida, we all lost our minds collectively. It's because the unthinkable had happened. Mr. TNA Wrestling, homegrown superstar, had finally made his way to the WWE. Now, although he had an excellent, showing in the Royal Rumble, and it was one of our favorite moments as a professional wrestling fan, including myself, we didn't know how things were going to pan out. So, after a few weeks, some adjusting, AJ Styles started to get his feet wet in the WWE, and we saw that he was just as phenomenal as ever. Vince McMahon wasn't always sold on it, but he would go on to say eventually, "Hey, you know what? I wish I would have signed you 10 years ago." So that's what TRDA is. Take respect to diversity. AJ Styles carves his niche and he shows that he can hang with the big boys in the WWE. And not only did he hang with the big boys, he became a Hall of Fame WWE superstar. So needless to say, AJ Styles' career, it stands out amongst the greats. He's already carved his place in the history of professional wrestling.
He ain't lying.
He has already carved his place into my heart. It's because as my favorite wrestlers were retired, I was looking for new favorite wrestlers, and along came Daniel Bryan, and along came AJ Styles. And I was along for every step of the ride. Now, was I surprised that AJ Styles decided to retire at this point? Not really. Now, let me tell you why. Let me briefly explain. You got to remember the first time AJ Styles got injured. Remember, he jumped from the top rope and he was about to do his phenomenal forearm because he is quite phenomenal. There should be like a phenomenal count number every time I say the word phenomenal. This is phenomenal. Anyways, he goes for a phenomenal forearm and he injures his ankle and he was out for a period of time. And he comes back from an ankle injury. I guess, I don't know what it was, a couple months, whatever case may be, a few months. He comes back and then he sprains his ankle again. And at that point, the Good Brothers, who were still in the WWE at the moment, they made it clear. They were like, look, AJ Styles wanted to retire then. It's because AJ Styles most likely came face to face with his pro wrestling mortality. He knew that, hey, this is starting to come to an end. I can't perform at the level that I want to as much as I have to. So AJ Styles at that point was already kind of talking about retirement, and thank God for the Good Brothers. Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, they did the right thing, as Good Brothers do. They convinced him, AJ, you're still at the top of your game. Don't retire now. You still have so much to give. AJ Styles came back even jacked and more buffed up than ever, and everybody was completely floored away with AJ Styles was still as phenomenal as ever. But yet we saw this random run, right? We saw these things take place towards the end of AJ Styles' career. And I'm going to be honest with you. AJ Styles began to look tired. And I'm not saying tired isn't slow, but you can tell what he was saying was actually true. AJ Styles' heart, it was at home. And his children were getting older, and I think he just got to a point where AJ Styles knew he had nothing left to prove. Am I surprised by that? No. Do I feel some type of way about it? I really don't. Because to be honest with you, after 26 glorious or phenomenal, you see what I did there? Phenomenal years, AJ Styles gave us all that he had. And at the end of the day, If AJ Styles decides to walk away now, even if he comes back for a moment or two later, we have 26 years of every era of AJ Styles floating around in these clouds on these different platforms where if we miss him, we can always go back and see our favorites. We're talking about a WWE champion, Grand Slam champion, a Hall of Famer, almost 4 different Hall of Fame careers. AJ Styles, after 26 years, he gave us everything that he had. And because he is my favorite professional wrestler, I couldn't ask for more. So am I going to miss AJ Styles? Of course I'm going to miss AJ Styles. But the beauty is, if I do miss him, I can just go back and watch all the stuff that he gave us. There's no shortage of AJ Styles footage from his time in New Japan, where I began to say, oh, this guy means business, to his Bullet Club run, to his time in Ring of Honor, as well as his early years in TNA, and of course, his illustrious WWE career. It's only fitting that a man that phenomenal bows out gracefully. And I couldn't be more happier for him. AJ Styles, look, what's AJ Styles? I'm ashamed of myself. I can't believe I messed up his name. AJ Styles deserves to retire, and he deserves to retire in peace. He has earned it. He's made it clear. Listen, we all work to one day retire, and I am officially there. Now, he made it clear there may be a moment or two where down the line, he may come back for a spot or two. If his son decides to get into professional wrestling, he would like to be able to tag with his son. You know, if there was a guest spot or a Royal Rumble or a moment for AJ Styles to be AJ Styles once again, I'm sure he'd be completely open to it. He made that very clear. Wrestlers don't really retire anyway. That's just the way that it is. But until that time, AJ Styles is going home, and he's ready. As I close this out, I want to say, thank you, AJ. Thank you for the many years of being simply phenomenal. AJ Styles, simply phenomenal. Are you guys tired of me saying phenomenal? Okay, I figured you would be. You think they're tired of me saying phenomenal? The question is, do you think that I care? No, I'm not. Phenomenal, 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 phenomenal. This show was simply phenomenal. 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 You can watch all of our Wrestling Realm content anytime on youtube.com/The Wrestling Realm.